Hello everyone, welcome to the Blue Dog Whisperer. I'm Evan Grollman and I'm actually recording this video via audio and video, so you can see the video on my YouTube channel, the Blue Dog Whisperer, and you can also listen to it on your Google device. We're on several different platforms now, including iHeartRadio and Apple Podcasts, if I'm not mistaken. So I want to discuss the 2024 election and why this is very unpredictable on both sides of the political spectrum. So there's a lot of talk on today, Wednesday, March 22nd, that President Trump is going to be indicted at any time now, although there have been reports just a few minutes ago that indictment is going to be delayed for the day. Why, I'm not entirely sure. The details are kind of fuzzy, but ultimately, President Biden is going to be the oldest president who's running for re-election. He's currently the oldest president who's ever served, the first octogenarian who's ever served now. And I'm not concerned about that. I really don't care about having an elderly president. It's not the first time, it won't be the last time. People are living longer now. But I do have a couple concerns. The first of which is that the way, it's not about how Biden can govern, but about how he can campaign. There has been a lot of doubt among some people that Biden is not the same person he was 4 years ago, and that being on the campaign trail would be more publicity, which could be good but could also be bad because he's always been gaffe prone. And while I don't believe he's suffering from cognitive decline in an unusual way, I do think that it's not necessarily going to help him should he be in the public eye for too long. Unfortunately, this is a country that frowns on aging, and we shouldn't, but if Biden were 10 years younger, I don't think that this would be as big a deal as what a lot of people are making it out to be. And another issue, of course, is the fact that Vice President Harris has lower approval ratings than President Biden. And I think part of that is because no one knows exactly what she's doing. It seems like that she has not exactly been high profile, and I'm not going to hold that against the administration. This administration has not been very high profile. But ultimately, voters want to get the sense that the vice president is doing something and is capable and up to the task. And granted, Vice President Harris was an attorney general for the state of California, but she was only a first-term senator, which beats Barack Obama and Donald Trump in terms of their experience. But ultimately, we don't know exactly what Vice President Harris has done, and what we do know is that Biden tasked her with the border issue, and we know that there is still a border crisis going on, and that is not going to look good for her. And there's a lot of talk about whether Biden should drop her from the ticket. I honestly don't know. It's a tough call, but ultimately, I don't know who he'd replace her with. But who I'd like to see her replaced with is possibly Lucy McBath, the congresswoman from Georgia, who was instrumental in getting that bill passed that caps the cost of insulin at $35 a month. I think that's important. I think the fact that she's from a swing state like Georgia is important. I think that she would possibly be a good replacement if for some reason the voters did not want Vice President Harris on the ticket, because as we all know, there's going to be a lot of speculation that, God forbid, if something happens to President Biden, would people want Vice President Harris in charge? Now, she is too progressive for me, but I am going to vote for the Democratic ticket in 2024 unless they nominate someone absolutely bonkers, which I don't see happening. But there are problems with the Republican side, because it almost seems like a two-man race at this point between someone who is probably going to be indicted versus someone who, he's a Governor DeSantis. So from an experience perspective, it's he's qualified, but he seems to be overreaching in a lot of different aspects. And like when he took away, I get that he took away the tax credits from Disney, if I'm not mistaken, and does he have the authority to do that? Perhaps, but the reason he did it was very petty, and it makes me question just how committed to smaller government he is. Republicanism and conservatism traditionally has been about smaller government, and Governor DeSantis, should he become president, is going to have a lot of power, especially if the Republicans maintain control of the House of Representatives and pick up the United States Senate. And unfortunately for the Democrats, there are a lot of competitive seats in purple to red states that are up. Sherrod Brown of Ohio, Joe Manchin of West Virginia, John Tester of Montana, all of whom I'm supporting, but I am concerned that 2024 could be horrible for Democrats if we don't get this right. And I get that in politics, commitment is a big thing. You give someone the vice presidential ticket, it's guaranteed that they're going to be on the ticket as long as you're running. But Vice President Harris is not very popular at this point. Neither is President Biden, which, the fact that they're both kind of unpopular makes me question whether he should run. But, the question that no one's actually bothered to answer is, if it's not President Biden, who's it going to be? And truth be told, President Biden, with all his faults, has gotten a lot done, and he has actually, I think, worked better with Congress than President Trump and President Obama. And a lot of that is because of experience. And I don't think President Biden and I don't think that the Biden administration gets the credit it deserves. It seems like a lot of times they are trying to cater to all sides of the Democratic Party, which I get, you got to do that. But I think that some people, myself included, voted for President Biden expecting something different, and he's governed a little more to the left than I would like. I'm not holding that against him, I get it, but I think that that has bothered some people, and I think that people are wondering what's going to be in store for a second term. But President Biden has achieved quite a bit, and it seems like, although there's been that "Let's Go Brandon" motto, and some people are really upset with Biden for certain things, it seems like the Republican opposition to President Biden has not been as enthusiastic as it was against Barack Obama. And there are several reasons that could be the case, but one of which I think is the fact that I think a lot of Republicans are just sick and tired of Donald Trump, and they want to return to some level of civility, and so they're keeping the criticisms more, I would say, to the issues rather than making it personal and conspiracy theories, although there are conspiracy theories going around, but it's not exactly among the high-profile Republicans it's not exactly as bad as it was with President Obama, when President Obama was accused of not being a citizen, was accused of being a Muslim, et cetera, just the crazy stuff. But I think that ultimately it's up to the voters, and a lot of voters do not want President Biden to run again, but if there is a very competitive primary and, God forbid, a contested convention, all hell's going to break loose, because the Republicans at this moment are in a battle for who controls their party, and they're very divided. And I think that people are viewing our political system as an airplane where the right wing is not really functioning and the left wing is to a certain extent. But ultimately, if Biden's not in control of the Democratic Party, who is? No one's answered this question, and obviously there's going to be a big battle at some point between the progressives, the liberals, the moderates, and while this disagreement is not necessarily unhealthy, I'm not sure that the year of a very vital presidential election is when we need to do that. So it's tough. It really is tough. So I do not envy the party leadership of both sides. They've got a lot of tough decisions to make. I'm glad to be a civilian. But ultimately, we're going to have to make those decisions, and I am not someone who always believes that what the party leadership does is correct, but ultimately, as far as being a registered Democrat, if the Democrats decide to run Biden and Harris again, I'm going to have to assume that there's a good reason for that, because the poll numbers indicate that people want to change. The problem is no one can agree on what that change should be. So that's where we are now.